This is an important public service message about the U.S. Census. The census is a procedure of systemically acquiring and recording information about the members of a given population. It's done every 10 years. We need to help make Houston count, so please stay tuned. Hi, and welcome to Yes to Census 2020. I'm Sharon Moses. Thank you for joining us. You know, today we want you to know that you're a very important part of this show. Have you heard about the census? With us in the studio is Margaret Wallace Brown. She is the director of the Planning and Development Department, and she's here to help us stay informed. Thank you, Margaret, for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me today. This
I
is a
know
great
you've
topic.
got a busy schedule. I'm excited to have you, but tell us, let's start with the basics. What is the census?
Okay, so every 10 years, the federal government counts the number of people living in the United States of America. It's a U.S. Constitution-based activity. It's been going on since 1790, and it does a couple things. One, it provides a basis for how the federal government distributes funding. More than $1 billion every year in federal funding is distributed to states and cities based on their population. Things like CHIP program and after-school lunch programs and community development block grants and some road programs, some road funding is distributed per populations. The other thing it does is it apportions the country to it provides for U.S. and state representation. So the number of congressmen that a city or a state has associated with it is based on population numbers. It's also something that the private sector uses, and that we don't talk about that nearly as much, but the private sector uses census numbers to help determine where they're going to place stores or offices or other things that they use. So it is critically important, and it's been going on again since 1790 in the United States. It happens every 10 years. It's a simple question, 9 questions on a form that every household, they count based on households. So how many households are there in Houston? How many people are living in each household? That's what we need to know.
Is it safe to answer these questions? I know people, they get a little nervous about talking about who's in their house and how many people are there. But there's a guarantee that this information won't be shared.
There
right?
is, and I really understand that there is fear among people, especially in 2020. I mean, in 2010 we faced all the fear and kind of stared it down and helped people understand that it was important and safe. And we have the same problem, maybe more so in 2020. So the rules are, the federal government is not allowed to share your census information with any other agency, with any other organization, with anybody for 72 years.
Wow.
Your information is safe. The city of Houston doesn't want to know how many people are living in your home because we want to cause you any problems about that. We want to know how many people are living in your homes because we want to make sure that you get the full amount of federal money, full representation, and that you get all the services that you deserve to get. It's about keeping neighborhoods safe. It's about getting education programs. It's about getting medical funding and health care. So it's about everything Houstonians need, and making sure that all Houstonians fill out the form is my job.
So if I were to say to you, why is it important? You've already said that in a nutshell. People don't realize it's not just about numbers. This brings it home when we talk about our communities. We're talking about funding and school programs and medical programs. And this is why each individual, babies included.
Babies included, yes. Anybody. If you had a baby last month, we want you to include that person on the form.
You only get 10 years to do it, right? So you've got to do it now because it's going to affect us for the next 10 years.
For the next 10 years, yeah.
Residents, I want to address that. Residents in the city of Houston.
Yeah. So it counts residents. It doesn't count citizens. It doesn't count people based on where they were born or what their papers say or what type of documentation they have. If you're living in Houston on April 1st, we want you to tell on your census form where you're living and how many people are living with you. It's just really important.
So I'm excited that this is the first year and I get to live here in Houston and see it. We've got online, that's how you can respond. You've got telephone, and then by mail.
Yes. It's the first time we've done online census counting, and so I'm interested to see how many people take advantage of it. It makes life easier for a lot of people. I think there's a number of people, there's the fear that we've talked about, but there's also just the whole, I don't have time, I'm too busy. Maybe online makes it that more easily accessible for people who are too busy, who may have 2 jobs or who are going to school and have a job. And so I'm curious to see how online does, but you can also do it on the phone. So there's any number of ways.
I think that this year we're going to really make our numbers count because it's easier, it's more convenient, and we're all familiar with the internet.
Yep.
So this should be a better year, or at least the next 10 years. Now here's a did you know. The census is the U.S. government's largest peacetime operation. It is the only federal activity that invites every U.S. resident to participate. For the 2010 census, more than 1 million census workers counted approximately 310 million people. That was 10 years ago. And so we begin again. More on Yes to Census 2020 when we return.
Honey, what I think you need is a socket wrench.
I played JV basketball.
I'm sorry. I don't think it looks right.
This is good, and it's all good, baby.
Is it really all good?
If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
I'm gonna call my dad.
Oh my God, did you get the job? I got the job. I got it too. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Where are you gonna be working at? I'm gonna work at home. I'm gonna be working across the street in the Houston Public Library. Oh my God, seriously? Yay, I got this.
I hope they didn't pass me up because of my visual impairment.
Hey, Sasha.
Yes?
I'm with the city of Houston. Congratulations. You got the job. How Houston you?
They say you don't have to be so strong, but this is my mother, my purpose. Strength is not optional. See, I lift her now like she raised me then, so I know my strength is super, but I'm still human.
Oh, look who's here.
Hi, and welcome back to Yes to Census 2020. I'm Sharon Moses, and we're talking about this census and why it matters. We want to make sure that you're aware of the importance of the census, what it means to you, to your family, and even your community. We've invited a panel of experts, and they're here to help explain why your participation in this effort will make all the difference. You've already met Margaret Wallace Brown. She's Houston's Planning and Development Department Director. We also have with us Judson Robertson III. He is President and CEO of the Houston Area Urban League. Next to him is Dr. Laura Murillo, and she's President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And finally, Helen V. Chou. She's Senior Manager of the International Services at the Houston Public Library. I want to say thank you to all of you for being here.
Thank you.
So excited to have you. So you have been public servants for a very long time. What is this census and why does it matter to the community? I want to start with you, Judson.
Well, it matters because it's their way of making sure they're represented in just about all aspects of life. Where your roads are built, where the public libraries are, where your public services are, you know, your SNAP, your food assistance, all those things are really dependent upon the count. And so if we don't know how many households are in a given area, we don't know how many people live in those households, then we can't really, you know, move the monies to where they're most needed. And so it's really an opportunity for people to speak up for themselves.
I like that. Dr. Murillo, what's your position on this? When you look at the community and how we have to get this information out, why do the numbers matter?
Well, they matter because we all have to count. And I think what also matters is that people understand that everyone needs to be counted. It doesn't matter what your status is, whether you have a house full of folks who were born and raised here in Houston, Texas, or they're from across the globe, that everyone counts, everyone matters. And this year, especially with all of the changes that I know you're going to be talking about, it's online now. You'll find a lot of community centers that are going to be engaged in all of this. But especially for that immigrant community, there's been a lot of scare tactics at the national level. There have been breaches of contracts in terms of telling DACA students their information would not be shared, and it was. And so there's a lot of fear and still confusion, and that's why we're working really hard to let folks know that this information is confidential.
And see,
and it's a really short, point of reference in terms of your time, but what that information does helps everyone, whether you are here and have been here forever, or you just showed up, last month.
I cut in there because you said the information is confidential, and I think that's really important. That's the message we want to get out. I want to jump to you, Helen, for just a minute, because you work with the City of Houston, right? Yes. What are we doing to help get this message out? And can you talk a little bit about how confidential this information is, even though it's, the public library is doing the thing to try to help make the citizens aware?
Yes. So with the City of Houston, what's really exciting is that this is the first time that City of Houston and Harris County are working together for the census. And we have a coalition that's come together, and there's 27 organizations that are trusted by the community, that are going out there and getting the right information out there, and building trust with the community so that they understand why this is so important and what it means for them in terms of, like you said, the schools, the roads, the health insurance, all of those things. And so, with what's great is Houston's libraries really belong to the community, and because of the community support, we're able to bring, I think, one of the best assets for the city, which is space that is safe and trusted across the city. We have 43 locations, and we're prepared to work with all of Houston in Action's 27 organizations to be bases for people to go out and get the word out and engage with the community. And we also have free access to computers and Wi-Fi all across our libraries. We've got a mobile bus unit, and we're going to unleash all of that to get the right trusted message out there. You mentioned confidentiality. What we want to make clear is that it is the law, that the information that's provided is not released. And it's interesting, the library actually is home to all of the past census information, but it's not released for 72 years. Wow. And so the last data that we have in the library is back in the 1940s. But in terms of how you can look at your information being safe, there are serious consequences if that information is released, and that is also protected by the law.
See, thank you for that. And I know Article 1, Section 2, I think we're required to make this count through the Constitution. Is that right, Margaret?
That is correct.
Can I ask you, and I know we were talking earlier in this first segment, but can you talk a little about the residents, the numbers? Like, what does it mean? Who are we talking about for counting for the City of Houston? Is it just certain populations, or are we saying everybody when we talk about residents?
No, so the Constitution of the United States of America requires that we count all people living in the United States of America, regardless of where they're from, where they were born, what language they speak, regardless of what their living circumstance is. There is an effort to count the homeless population as well. And what we want to do is make sure that everybody understands, if you are in a home that you've lived in for 50 years, we want to count you. If you are in a place that you have only been in for a few years because you were displaced by a natural disaster, we want to count you. If you have residents that are living with you because they were displaced from their home, we want you to count them as well. Every single Houstonian, every person who uses our roads, who uses our libraries, who goes to school in this community, who is a part of our community, we want to count you. And the reason that we want to count you is because we want to make sure that you get full services that are provided to you. You know, we talk a lot about public monies and public assistance that comes with it, but there's another aspect of this that's not talked about quite as much, and that is private entities use census information, use the global numbers in order to make decisions about where they're going to place businesses. If your neighborhood doesn't have a grocery store, then the best thing you can do is make sure all of your neighbors get counted so that the next grocery store company that's thinking about moving somewhere, they will know what the full residential population is for that area, so they know whether or not to locate there. So other surfaces, other private entities make decisions based on population. Everything matters.
This is an excellent panel. I want the community to look at this panel. We represent Houston, and I'm excited to have each and every one of you on this panel. Let me say thank you for your public service, because you've always been out there making sure that the community is aware. We're going to take a short break, but before we take this break, here's another did you know. Since the first U.S. Census in 1790, certain segments of the population have been consistently undercounted, in particular the poor, transient, and immigrant communities. Yes to Census 2020. We'll be right back after this.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
When I was 10, my mom got deported. We had a difficult time, and I feel that's why I didn't get to finish school. My husband is really supportive in a way that he pushed me to go back to school.
She wants to have a career so her kids can look up to her.
They both keep me motivated to go to school, and they see that if I do it, like they can do it too, you know? I feel that everything's possible.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Did you get the job?
I got the job.
Oh my God, I got it too. Where are you gonna be working at?
I'm working at City Hall. You?
I'm gonna be working in the library across the street. This is gonna be so cool. Oh my God,
that's amazing.
I love it. We're gonna get to hang out during lunch. Oh my God.
I'm with the city of Houston. Congratulations. You got the job with Houston Youth.
We're the Malpas family. Let's meet downtown. Every weekend is a staycation for us. There's always something fun to do. Some of our favorite go-to spots? Definitely Finn Hall. Ethan loves to get a slice of pizza at Mr. Nice Guy. Then we usually hit one of downtown's many parks, and to get our culture fix, just a quick train ride away is the fabulous museum district in the Houston Zoo. There's so much to love about living in downtown. To get our whole story, visit meetdowntownhouston.com.
Hi, and welcome back to Yes to Census 2020. We're talking about the census process, what it means, and why you count. If you've been watching us, you know the importance of this program. For those of you just tuning in, we have more information for you. Our esteemed panelists here, they're going to give you some insights on some of the challenges that we're facing, but also how we can overcome these challenges. So thank you again to all of you for being here. Here's one thing I want to address, some of the misconceptions about the census. And anybody can kind of just jump in. What are some of the things that you've heard, and how can we address that and say, hey, no, this is really what the truth is?
That it takes too long. I
Very
hear
good.
that a lot from people. I don't have time to do this. The reality is the census is 9 questions. It'll take less than 10 minutes for you to answer it. Every other year or so, there is a longer form that they do. This is not it. This is the short form. This is 9 questions, and you can do it. You can do it on the internet. You can do it and mail it in. You can do it in 10 minutes. It's worth your 10 minutes.
See, I like that.
And they're not hard questions either.
No.
Okay.
It's stuff that anybody can answer, right? You know, who are you? How many people live with you? You know, it's the types of things that we kind of answer every day. So it takes 10 minutes. It's not a long time. And again, it's going to make such a difference. You know, if you look at some of the neighborhoods that the Urban League works in, and you look at decades of underrepresentation, and you wonder, you know, why does it continue to look this way? A lot of that has to do with where the resources go based upon the numbers that are counted. So if you don't have enough grocery stores, enough banks, you don't have good roads in your community, you don't have the facilities that you need for your children, then you have to kind of take some self-blame for that, kind of, because you're not doing your constitutional duty which is to respond to the census. So it's important. I mean, it matters to you, it matters to your neighbors. You know, the things that we're looking at today in our communities are based upon the last census 10 years ago, right? So it doesn't take a lot of time, and it makes a huge difference. And so we would just ask that everybody help make each other's life a little bit better by participating.
Well, I think that's why it's so important now to have a very strong outreach in communities that are trusted communities, right? Such as Catholic Charities, neighborhood centers, and others, the library, so that people go to those trusted resources. A study has indicated that most minorities do not trust anything that is a governmental entity or institutions. They trust people. And so those familiar faces, such as those sitting around this table, are here to say, yes, trust the census, submit your information, especially those immigrant communities who have in the past not had the best experience with the government. They must fill it out. I think some of the misconceptions include, well, it's only for citizens, or I can't count all 7 people who live in this home because 3 of them aren't here documented, etc. I think also we forget about kids who are living in dorms, right? They also need to be counted. So everyone needs to be counted. The babies, the children, the grandchildren, the 2 grandmas that live with you, all of that needs to be done, and it's important. It's very important. So there are a lot of resources out there. I think we need to continue with this message. You'll see public servants announcements of people encouraging to do it. These monies need to come to our area. And it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we do our part.
You mentioned babies. Children under the 5 are a hard to count population. And I don't know why, but it seems that if you've got a family with 2 jobs or 3 jobs and a couple other kids, and you're really struggling to pay attention to children need to be counted, babies need to be counted.
Yeah, I was going to add that, when everybody is talking about getting counted, don't forget the baby that was born last month. He or she's just as important. I think one thing I also want to encourage people to do is ask questions. I think one of the greatest, most exciting things that's happening in Houston is that all these organizations are coming together. The Catholic Charities, the Boat People SOS, all of these organizations under Houston in Action's leadership, and they are equipped with the right answers to whatever questions you have about how this information is used, and how to answer this question, how to represent yourself on the census. And so I think we should take advantage of that resource that has come together in a really exciting way.
When you go back to talking about the kids, a mother cares about WIC, she cares about SNAP and TANF. If we're not counting properly, then you're not going to have those resources come to those areas where those services are needed.
See, I have to jump in here, Judson, because that's a good point. Is it just about the numbers? And there's people, why does the government want to know who's in my house? But it's more than that. We're talking about SNAP benefits. We're talking about medical benefits, Medicare, all those type of things. And this is why it matters. April 1st is Census Day. Do I have that date correct?
You do.
Okay, so whomever is living in your house on April 1st, we want to count them. Make sure you count them. Babies, grandmothers, uncles, aunts. If they're sleeping in your home, count that person, because it's going to make a difference in your community.
Billions of dollars every year, billions in federal funding are doled out to cities and states based on population.
Billions with a B.
Billions with a B every year. So the number that we have in 2020 will live with us for 10 years, and that will affect how much of those billions of dollars come to Houstonians.
Well, it also impacts the status that we want, which is to be the 3rd largest city in America. And so we cannot miss that. Mayor Sylvester Turner will not be happy if we don't have the numbers that we need, because it is, at the end of the day, about resource, economic impact, and how much money and how many resources we can get here to this great city of ours. But you've got to do your part, and that's why the Chamber of Commerce and so many other groups have been talking about this for months and months. And I want to applaud Margaret and her team with the city for all of their outreach efforts. We're out in the community at events, organizations, on the radio, on television. You're going to keep hearing this, folks. Do your part.
Dr. Murillo, I must say, though, when we talk about becoming the 3rd largest city in the country, you're talking about more traffic. And if you're talking about more traffic and how to reduce the traffic load, then you've got to have the resources coming into the area to address it. So it's all kind of tied together. With growth comes consequences. And with the consequences comes a responsibility of all of us, especially our community leaders out there, to make sure that they are avid voices to inform others about the importance of not fearing the census. The census is a good thing. It's a good thing for all communities.
And don't forget about representation.
It's
Possible that Texas can get 2 more U.S. representatives from this census. And if you know, do we want those 2 to go to the Dallas area because they had a better count than we did? No. We want them to come to Houston and to the Houston area. So, you know, representation is also a result of making sure everybody gets counted.
Which I think you need to point out too, Margaret, if we don't have the proper numbers, we could lose representation.
We could.
That's the thing. People don't realize we need these numbers to literally count to make the difference.
And I think it's important to applaud Harris County and Houston for investing the resources to make sure that these outreach efforts can take place. We have places like California where their governor has invested resources. Texas has not. And so we are up again with that challenge of utilizing the community, utilizing business leaders and others to send out this message. And in many ways, I think that the more we do this, the more people will become comfortable with it. And for those who are Spanish speaking, or the 100 and something languages that are spoken across this great region, is that we need to make sure that there is access for them as well, and that we especially pay attention to the churches and places of religious you know, conversations, so that once again, no one is out there without having heard this at least 7 times.
I know the city has promised, at least from the solid waste department, to put the signs on the trucks that say, you know, yes to 2020, the census. So I know that the city's trying to do some things, and each community, you all are representatives of your community. In your particular community, what exactly are you doing just to say, hey, come on, let's keep it going. Let's keep the numbers counting.
Well, the Chamber of Commerce is fortunate and blessed to have a television program on CBS. We are on 6 CBS radio stations with an audience reach of over 3 million. We also have a television radio program on Univision, and we have some of the largest events in the city of Houston upcoming. Our luncheon at about 1,600. So at all of those events, we're talking about it. We have young leaders that are also, you know, got their talking points with their organizations, and so we collaborate with folks like Judson and others to just continue to have that message out there.
And town hall meetings are constantly taking place. We have one today. We had one this past Saturday where we're trying to inform community leaders and also, you know, really helping to kind of break down for people what it really looks like. You know, you're going to get it electronically, and then eventually somebody's going to knock at your door. So you have the opportunity to have it done in a much easier fashion. Go online and get it done.
I do just want to emphasize also that we are going to be serving populations of all language communities. So you can take the census in 12 different languages, including English, or as well as English. And then the library is going to have guides that will walk you through the census in 56 different languages. So
this is excellent, and thank you all for being here. I want to thank all of the guests and the viewers for watching Yes to Census 2020 on HTV. We hope that this program has helped you understand the importance of the U.S. Census. Houston needs to make the numbers count. So please participate in the process and tell others why our numbers really do matter. For more information, please visit www.2020census.gov. Thanks for watching. I'm Sharon Moses. We'll see you next time.